speak a little bit about some of my experiences, both in the Penn I-Corps program, and then I had the pleasure and privilege of moving on to the national program, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that as well, my experiences there. So I participated in the same program that you're doing now, the Penn I-Corps program, in the fall semester, I guess, of 2018. We had recently been awarded a phase 1 SBIR to advance a platform technology that we had developed to generate fully canine antibodies, with sort of two goals in mind. One, to produce veterinary therapeutics. I'm a veterinarian. I work at the vet school. I probably should have said that. And two, to enable employment of client-owned animals to test sort of these therapies out and then inform human clinical trial design. So a veterinary application as well as a human application. And as part of the phase 1 SBIR that we were awarded, we had the option then of joining the National NIH program, I-Corps program, and it was recommended to me to take the Penn I-Corps program first, so I would have some idea of what I was getting myself into. And I have to say that I was very pleased that I did that. As I went to the I-Corps program at Penn, we did not have a team put together, and it was very useful for us because we were able to take advantage of the list that Thomas and the group had put together of individuals looking for teams. And so we were able to gain a member there, and also hooked up with a strategic advisor in the program. So that's how we put our I-Corps team together. And just like you guys are doing now, we were tasked with performing about 20 interviews, working off this business canvas, essentially, to really figure out our value proposition. And I think that for me at least was a really important first step, which is I think what you're all doing now, to really understand what does the market need, and does your product fit that, as opposed to coming in with a product and trying to fit it somewhere so that it could potentially be useful. I don't know whether you're finding the interviews challenging. Certainly for us initially, those interviews were challenging. People are busy. Not everybody is willing to sort of talk to you and discuss your product. But what I learned early on is that while they may not be so willing to talk about your product, they're oftentimes quite willing to talk about their field and talk about what they feel is necessary in the field. And that was an important lesson for me, that this is not about selling your product. This is about listening to what people need, and that's obviously what you've all been doing, and what the Penn I-Corps program teaches you is to get out there, get out of the building and do your customer discovery and really listen to what is needed, and then you can determine whether your product fits or whether you're going to have to pivot and either change your product or change your customer segment. So the interviews really were not a time to sell your product. They were a time to learn what is required in the marketplace and develop your value proposition. We also were able to participate, once we'd finished the Penn I-Corps program, in the I-Corps Accelerator Program showcase at PCI, which was also helpful. And we also took advantage of the ability to submit an application to the Penn I-Corps program for a small $3,000 grant, which we were awarded, which was super, and that furthered our customer discovery. And so what we planned to do with that was to go to a veterinary internal medicine conference and talk to people there about what they thought was needed. But we were advised sort of against that by the team, by the advisors, and suggested that perhaps we should think more of a different conference, and ended up going to the Chiasco Human Biotech and Animal Health Conference in Boston in April, I think that was, of 2019. And that was a real a good decision. We were able to start to engage with human biopharma and also the animal health sector as well. And again, learned more about how we should talk to these people and understand again what the need is in the marketplace and what we had. And of course, that was my first glimpse into the recognition that selling a platform technology, which is what we had, was really not that helpful. And we really needed to focus on a product, because we could produce many products from this library, and we also had the whole of the animal health sector as well as the human sector for research. So we really did have this big, broad display in front of us of where to go, and we were very unfocused. And that was a wake-up call about how unfocused we really were. And so through the I-Corps program at Penn, we started to develop our value proposition, and we were able to become a lot more focused. So then we went to the nationals, and I would say, I think that if you get a chance to do this, I would absolutely recommend it. If and when you get your phase 1 SBIR, there's an option to partake in the national program. And it's definitely worth doing. I would completely encourage that. It is demanding, so it's pretty intense. But it is really very similar to the Penn I-Corps program, but on a bigger scale with several logs of intensity increased. But you do survive it. And I think I would say I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I learned a huge amount. So I would definitely encourage you to go for it. The transition to that program was pretty easy because of the foundation that we had through the Penn I-Corps program. So at the national program, I think there were 20, Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was 23 teams, something like that. 3 people in each team, but it was less diverse in terms of focus than the Penn I-Corps. So we were really in a group that was focused on human and, of course, us, animal health. And those groups were divided into sort of therapeutics group, devices group, and diagnostics group. The setup of the program was essentially 2 in-person meetings. So the first for us was held in Houston, in Texas, and that was deliberately chosen because of the concentration of medical centers and research labs that were there, which of course was very important in our customer discovery and that for other teams. And then at the end of the 10-week program, there was a 2-day closeout meeting then at Bethesda. So at those in-person meetings, at the kickoff meeting, there would be sort of a plenary session where one of the instructors would provide us with information on many different aspects, again, mostly focused on working our way through the business canvas and picking up areas of that to focus on. And then we would break out into our different groups. And I think that one of the things that I found very useful was not only hearing the feedback from our presentation from the instructors, but listening to the feedback that other teams got, because really what you're being taught there is you're being given sort of a set of tools that really could be applied to any device or therapeutics. And so it was really helpful and very useful to be exposed to the other teams and watching how they were going through and pivoting their technologies according to what they learned from their customer segment discoveries and their interviews. And that was very, very helpful. And super groups, really great camaraderie between everybody. A very, very fun experience. You're expected to perform over 100 interviews in that 10-week period, and that is pretty challenging to do. fairly slow to start, but as you start to build up steam, you always ask the question, is there somebody else we should talk to? Can you recommend somebody else? And slowly your number of interviewees grows, and you focus again on this business canvas model. I think, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to sort of move forward in terms of saying that the instructors were fantastic. There was sort of a group of individuals who have a lot of experience in biotech, a lot of experience in startup companies. They were very accessible. We would have office hours every week. We would have a 3 or 4 hour session every Wednesday in which we presented what we had learned that week, and we got active feedback from the instructors. We would have reading material, videos to watch, our customer interviews, and then weekly presentations. And just finally to sort of talk about, when we started, our value proposition was as follows. Biopharmaceutical companies will buy fully canine antibodies for therapeutic and diagnostic purposes to improve canine healthcare and de-risk the development of human immunotherapeutics. And by the time we had finished, our value proposition had changed dramatically, far more focused, and also including sort of numerical goals which could then be tested in the field. So veterinary oncologists will buy our non-immunogenic canine antibody to treat dogs with lymphoma. Use of this antibody will increase patient survival 3 to 6 months beyond standard of care, reduce CHOP duration and side effects by 50%, and provide good quality QOL, quality of life time with dogs for dog owners. Finally, and then if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to go there. The next steps that Thomas asked, from where we went, from where we were at the I-Corps, sort of trying to get people to come along and build the team. We now have expanded. We've brought on board a strategic consultant, and that was recommended to do by the National I-Corps. We hired a CEO. We were told to negotiate our IP, which we are now doing. We also learned about trademarking at the national program, and now are trademarking both the company name and the antibodies that come from the platform. We're applying for a phase 2 SBIR, and we're in sort of early talks with various pharmaceutical companies to move our products forward. So hopefully that's been a very sort of quick and concise, hopefully, sort of description of what we've learned both in the Penn I-Corps and the National I-Corps. And again, I would just sort of say, I would really encourage you, if you do get a chance to go to National I-Corps, suck it up and go. You'll work hard, but you'll learn a lot.
Before I just open it up to questions, can you talk about, I guess on average, how many hours per week were you committing versus like the entrepreneurial lead, the different members of the team?
Yeah, that's
Ballpark.
a good question. Yeah, so I would say that I was probably putting 2 to 4 hours a day into the program. The others maybe a little bit less, because I had some in leads just because of the veterinary aspect. But I would say, yeah, 2 to 3 hours a day. It's a lot of work, but it's really worth it.
Great. I think that's just helpful for teams to know. But thank you. You didn't have to say nice things about the instructors, even though I was there. It's great to hear you've made great progress, and I would just tell the teams that, NSF, NIH will never say the reason you go through National I-Corps is to improve your odds of getting your phase 2 or your phase 1, but that is one of the big reasons I would encourage most teams. We, the NSF, NIH, they are tracking data in terms of teams that apply for an SBIR who have or have not gone through any kind of I-Corps training, and your chances of succeeding at getting that grant are much, much higher if you've been through this process. Just what we are doing here at Penn is literally just scratching the surface. You're learning some of the lingo, but to really build out, be able to flesh out a well thought through business plan or a phase 2 SBIR, would strongly encourage you to consider participating in a national program. Just because here we barely have time to even touch on customer segment value proposition. And Nicola will tell you, we really spent significant time on all the different boxes, and we could have spent probably all 7 weeks on just customer segments and value propositions. There was a lot to learn there.